Let me ask the question: how do you guys answer the question when people say, "Well, Christianity is a Western religion. It's a white man's religion." Especially because it's come from somewhere and it's been handed down to us here, and we've got our own complexities, we've got our own cultures and our own realities, and how do you answer that? How do you dialogue through that?
So first of all, it's not a Western religion. It's from the Middle East. Israel is in the Middle East, and the people of Israel were the ones who started preaching the gospel to people surrounding them, and those people would have taken the gospel to the West. In the West, maybe they did bring the gospel to Africa, but you can't really be sure that there was no gospel in Africa at that time, because Egypt was around Israel. So the gospel could have gone to Egypt, and it would have spread down to Somalia and some parts of Africa as well at that time. So it's not true that it's a Western religion. Historically speaking, it is a Jewish religion, and it spread into other Gentile states. So it's quite a distorted view of how the gospel has spread out.
And so do you bring people to that reality? Do you start there? Do you start by saying, listen guys, it's not, yes, maybe the missionaries from England might have brought the gospel here to Africa, but somebody took it to them. Did you start there? Is that
Yeah, I think go and search through history, you will find out that it didn't start in the West.
Right.
They were preached to also by the Israelites, and so just that idea itself is quite far off the mark. So and there are other issues to tackle when you deal with that, but that is one of the foundations of it.
And I think if it's a question of where the gospel got to Africa or the West first, I think I'll take them to scripture, where you read of a story in Acts where there's a guy who's from Ethiopia, I think, and you're told that this guy heard the gospel, was in Jerusalem, and he got baptized by Philip before he went back home. And you say, guys, look right here, this guy took the gospel back to Africa right before he went to the West. So if it's a question of that, I think I'll bring that up and still go the same route that Simba did say, that the gospel is actually from the Middle East. The gospel is from God. God who made all humanity. The guys from the West, the guys from the Middle East, Africans, all of us made by God. And He's the one who just gives us the gospel, whom the gospel comes from.
Yeah, and I just wish that African Christians weren't so ignorant of church history. Not only is that where the gospel began, but we've got some giants of the faith who were African guys. We've got guys like Athanasius, who stood up for who Christ is. He stood up for the deity of Christ against the most rampant false teaching of the day. He's an African brother. We've got Augustine, who is a giant. Augustine's City of God influenced not only the church, but secular thinking until the Renaissance. He's a massive, massive giant. And so, we as Africans need to realize that the gospel hit Africa in a big way, far, far before it hit the West. We've got such a rich heritage, and it would be great if we could get back to that place where the Christian leaders, the thought leaders of the church came from Africa, who were the guys who stood on scripture and said, this is what we believe, this is why we believe it, and let the rest of the world follow our example.